The slap cracked through gate C-17 like a gunshot. Arielle Brooks didn't fall. She didn't scream. She just stood there, navy uniform perfect, posture straight, while her cheek exploded in heat and the entire terminal went silent. The woman who hit her, blonde, designer coat, diamonds catching fluorescent light, lowered her hand slowly, like she'd just swatted a fly. "Learn your place," Celeste Whitmore said. Phones came up, a dozen cameras, 20. The kind of moment that lives forever on the internet, frame by frame, angle by angle. Arielle's ears rang, not from the impact, from the silence that followed. The kind of silence that meant everyone saw it, everyone knew it was wrong, but no one moved. She'd been standing near the gate doing her job, just standing. Celeste had stormed over, face tight with the kind of anger rich people wear when the world doesn't bend fast enough. First-class flight delayed. Weather, FAA regulations, nothing Arielle controlled. But Celeste didn't care about weather. She cared about control. "You people always have an excuse," Celeste had said, venom dripping from every word. Arielle had tried to explain, tried to stay calm, tried to do what she'd been trained to do since childhood, smile, nod, absorb the blow without flinching. Except this time, the blow was literal. Her vision blurred, not with tears. She refused to cry. She'd learned that lesson young: tears made you a target, tears meant weakness, tears got you fired. So she blinked hard and locked her knees, and kept her hands folded in front of her like nothing happened. Airport security rushed in. Radios crackled. Voices overlapped in a chaotic mess of procedure and panic. Someone grabbed Celeste's arm. Someone else asked Arielle if she was okay. She nodded, automatic, robotic. She wasn't okay. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Once, twice, 3 times, vibrations that felt like earthquakes against her hip. She didn't check it. Celeste was already talking over the security officers, her voice loud and confident. She was disrespectful. She talked back, "I'm filing a complaint." Arielle's stomach dropped. Of course that's how this would go. The victim becomes the problem. The employee becomes the liability. She'd seen it before, heard the stories. Black women in service jobs didn't get justice, they got fired. A security officer touched her elbow. "Ma'am, we need you to step aside." Her chest tightened. Step aside. Code for, "You're the one we're investigating." She followed him toward the back hallway, legs moving on autopilot, mind spinning. She could already see it, the write-up, the suspension, the quiet termination disguised as policy. Her phone buzzed again. And again. Behind her, Celeste was still talking, still rewriting the narrative, still convinced she'd done nothing wrong. What Celeste didn't know, what no one in that terminal knew, was that the footage was already moving. Not just on phones. Somewhere else. Somewhere that mattered. Arielle reached the hallway and leaned against the wall, finally alone. She pressed her palm to her burning cheek and closed her eyes. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. She pulled it out with shaking hands. 12 missed calls. All from the same person. Would you stay silent if someone hit you in front of everyone? Arielle grew up knowing how to disappear. Not physically. She was tall, dark-skinned, impossible to miss in most rooms. But she learned early how to make herself small in the ways that mattered. Quiet voice, polite smile, no sudden movements. Her mother taught her that. Shanice Brooks worked double shifts at a nursing home in Tacoma, came home smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion, and still found time to drill one lesson into her daughter's head. The world doesn't give Black women second chances. So Arielle learned the rules. Don't talk back, don't raise your voice, don't give them a reason. She got good grades, stayed out of trouble. Chose aviation because the sky felt like freedom. Up there, gravity didn't matter, and neither did the weight she carried on the ground. Becoming a flight attendant wasn't glamorous. It was survival with a uniform. She served drinks to people who looked through her, smiled at passengers who snapped fingers instead of saying please, absorbed comments about her hair, her tone, her existence, and kept moving. Because that's what you did. You endured. The airport hallway smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Arielle sat in a plastic chair outside the security office, waiting. Her cheek still throbbed. She hadn't looked in a mirror yet, didn't want to see the proof. A supervisor appeared, middle-aged white man, tired eyes, clipboard in hand. Ms. Brooks. She stood immediately, habit. We're going to need a full statement, he said, not unkindly, and we'll have to review the footage. I understand. Did you provoke the passenger in any way? The question landed like a second slap. No, sir. He nodded, writing something down. We have to ask, you know how it is. She did know. She knew exactly how it was. When a white woman attacked a black employee, the first question was always, what did you do to deserve it? Her phone buzzed again. She glanced down. Answer me. The text was from Joon-Seok. Her fiancé, the man she loved, the man whose last name she still hadn't taken, whose world she kept at arm's length because mixing his life with hers felt dangerous. Not because he was dangerous to her. Because he was dangerous, period. She typed back quickly, fingers trembling. I'm fine, don't come. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then nothing. That was worse than a response. The supervisor cleared his throat. You can go home for today. We'll call you when we've completed the investigation. Translation. You're suspended until we decide if this is your fault. Arielle nodded, grabbed her bag, and walked out before her composure cracked. The terminal was quieter now. The crowd had moved on. Celeste was probably already in first class, complaining about something else. Arielle headed for the employee exit, head down, shoulders tight. She didn't notice the man in the gray suit, watching from across the concourse. He watched her leave. Then he made a phone call. Have you ever had to smile through your own humiliation just to keep your job? Celeste Whitmore didn't think about the slap after it happened. Why would she? She'd corrected bad behavior. That's what people like her did. The world had order, and order required enforcement. She adjusted her coat, smoothed her hair, and boarded the delayed flight to San Francisco like nothing happened. Her son, Bennett, trailed behind her, earbuds in, face blank. He'd seen the whole thing. He said nothing. That's how he'd learned to survive his mother. Celeste settled into her first-class seat, buckled in, and ordered a gin and tonic before takeoff. The flight attendant, a young white woman with nervous hands, brought it quickly, no eye contact. Good. That's how it should be. Celeste took a sip and scrolled through her phone. A few texts from friends, a reminder about a charity gala, an email from her lawyer about a board meeting. Nothing unusual. She didn't see the video yet, but it was already spreading. Someone had uploaded it to Twitter, then Instagram, then TikTok. The algorithm loved outrage, and this was premium content. Rich white woman slaps black flight attendant in public. The caption wrote itself. By the time Celeste's plane took off, the video had 200,000 views. By the time it landed, it had 2 million. Celeste Whitmore had spent her entire life insulated from consequences. Old money did that. Her family name opened doors, silenced critics, made problems disappear. She sat on 3 nonprofit boards, donated to the right politicians, and attended the right parties. People didn't challenge her. They smiled, nodded, and did what she wanted. That's how power worked. She taught Bennett the same philosophy. The world was divided into 2 groups, people who mattered and people who served. Knowing the difference was survival. When the plane touched down in San Francisco, Celeste powered on her phone. Texts flooded in. Did you see this? Is this you? Call me immediately. She frowned, opened Twitter, and saw her face. Not a flattering photo. Mid-slap, eyes cold, hand raised. The comments were brutal. Disgusting. She needs to be arrested. This is what privilege looks like. Celeste's chest tightened. This wasn't supposed to happen. She'd been careful. She'd been discreet. No one was supposed to care about some random airport employee. Bennett glanced over, saw the screen, and looked away. "Mom," he said quietly, "maybe you should call Dad." She ignored him. Her lawyer was already texting. "We need to talk, now." Celeste gathered her bags, held her head high, and walked through the terminal like she owned it. But for the first time in years, people stared at her differently. Not with admiration. With disgust. A woman in the baggage claim area whispered something to her friend, then pulled out her phone. Another person took a photo. Celeste's hands shook as she scrolled through her contacts. She needed to control this, bury it, make it go away. That's what money was for. What she didn't know was that the video had already reached someone who didn't care about money. Someone who cared about something else entirely. Someone who never forgot a name. Or a face. Do you believe people like Celeste ever really face consequences? Joon-Seok Han didn't raise his voice when he saw the video. He didn't shout, didn't throw anything, didn't even move. He just watched. The tablet sat on the glass table in front of him, screen glowing in the dim light of his private office. The footage looped automatically. Slap, rewind, slap, rewind. His fiancée's face, the shock, the stillness. The humiliation. Joon-Seok's jaw tightened. To most people, he looked like a businessman. Clean suit, polite smile, soft-spoken and unassuming. He ran a shipping company with international holdings, attended charity events, donated to hospitals. Respectable. Boring, even. But people who really knew him understood something different. Joon-Seok Han was a man who built empires quietly. He didn't need to be loud. Loud people made mistakes. Loud people left evidence. Joon-Seok preferred silence. And in silence, he was unstoppable. His assistant, Min-yi, stood near the door, hands folded, waiting. "Her name," Joon-Seok said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Celeste Whitmore," Min-yi replied. 52, married, 2 children, family money, sits on several nonprofit boards, no criminal record. Joon-Seok nodded slowly. "Find everything." Min-yi didn't ask for clarification. He didn't need to. Everything meant everything. Financial records, business dealings, social connections, secrets, scandals, anything buried, anything forgotten, anything she thought was safe. Nothing was safe. Joon-Seok had learned that lesson young, growing up in Seoul before his family moved to Los Angeles. Power wasn't about violence. It was about information, leverage, knowing exactly where to press until something broke. He'd never told Arielle the full truth about his work. She knew he was successful. She knew he had influence. But she didn't know how deep that influence ran or how far he was willing to go to protect the people he loved. He'd kept it that way on purpose. Arielle valued her independence. She didn't want to be someone's trophy, someone's protected pet. She wanted to stand on her own. Joon-Seok respected that. Loved her for it, even. But respect had limits. And watching someone put their hands on her, that crossed every single one. His phone buzzed. A text from Arielle. "I'm fine, don't come." He stared at the message for a long time. Then he set the phone down without responding. He wasn't going to come. He didn't need to. Min-yi left the office without a word, already making calls. By morning, Celeste Whitmore's entire life would be mapped out in front of Joon-Seok like a chessboard. And he was very, very good at chess. Joon-Seok stood, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and looked out over the port of Los Angeles. Cargo ships moved slowly through the dark water, lights blinking like distant stars. Everything looked peaceful. But beneath the surface, currents ran deep. He thought about the first time he met Arielle. She'd been working a flight to Seoul. He'd been in first class, exhausted from meetings, barely paying attention. But she'd noticed he wasn't drinking the champagne they kept refilling. "Long day?" she'd asked, voice warm but professional. Long year, he'd replied. She'd smiled, not the fake smile flight attendants wore for tips, a real one. Then rest, she'd said. I'll make sure no one bothers you. And she had. No one bothered him the entire flight. She checked on him once quietly, then let him sleep. When they landed, he'd asked for her name. She'd hesitated. That hesitation told him everything. She wasn't looking for money, wasn't impressed by his suit or his seat assignment. She just wanted to do her job and go home. He'd liked that. Respected it. Pursued her carefully, slowly, until she finally said yes to coffee. That was 2 years ago. Now she wore his ring. And someone had put their hands on her. Joon-Seok's reflection stared back at him in the glass, expression unreadable. He didn't believe in loud revenge. He believed in precision. In 48 hours, Celeste Whitmore's life would start to collapse. And she'd never know why. What would you do if someone you loved was humiliated in public? Arielle locked herself in the restroom and finally let go. Not tears, she still wouldn't give the world that. But her hands shook so badly, she had to grip the sink to stay upright. The airport restroom was empty, just her and the fluorescent lights and the faint smell of cheap soap. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. A red mark bloomed across her left cheek, proof, evidence, a brand. She looked tired. Small. Angry at herself for feeling small. This wasn't supposed to happen. She'd done everything right. Stayed calm, stayed professional, followed the script she'd been writing since childhood. And it didn't matter. Celeste had hit her anyway. Because people like Celeste didn't see people like Arielle as human. They saw uniforms, service, something to be managed. Arielle's phone buzzed again. She didn't want to look. But she did. Joon-Seok hadn't responded to her last text. That wasn't like him. He always responded, always checked in. The silence felt heavier than words. She typed again, desperate now. Please, I'm okay. I just need space. 3 dots appeared. Then, I know. That was it. 2 words. But they carried weight Arielle recognized. The kind of weight that meant decisions had already been made, plans already set in motion. No, she whispered to the empty restroom. She knew what he was capable of, not because he'd ever hurt her, not because he'd ever threatened anyone in her presence, but because she'd seen the way people reacted to his name. The way conversations stopped, the way debts disappeared, the way problems solved themselves when Joon-Seok Han got involved. She'd never asked questions. Didn't want to know. But she wasn't stupid. The man she loved had power, real power, the kind that didn't need courtrooms or cops. And she'd just asked him not to use it. Arielle splashed cold water on her face, careful to avoid the mark on her cheek. She needed to go home, needed to think, needed to figure out how to stop whatever was already happening. Her phone buzzed one more time. A news alert. Video of airport assault goes viral. Calls for investigation. She clicked the link. And there it was. Her face, Celeste's hand, the slap looped over and over. 2 million views. Comments flooded in. Supportive, angry, calling for justice. But Arielle didn't feel relieved. She felt exposed. The whole world was watching now. Which meant Joon-Seok was watching. And so was everyone else in his world. She grabbed her bag and walked out of the restroom, head down, moving fast. The terminal felt different now, like everyone recognized her, like cameras followed her everywhere. She made it to the employee parking lot and sat in her car for 10 minutes, engine off, hands on the wheel. Her phone rang. Not a text this time, a call. Joon-Seok. She answered. I told you I'm fine, she said before he could speak. I know you're fine, he replied. His voice was calm, too calm, but you don't have to be. I don't want you to do anything. Silence. Then, it's already done. Her stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means you should go home. Rest. Let me handle this. I don't need you to handle this. I know, he said gently, but I'm going to anyway. The line went dead. Arielle sat there, staring at the phone, heart pounding. Somewhere across the country, Celeste Whitmore was about to learn a lesson. And Arielle had no idea how to stop it. 300 miles away, Celeste's lawyer was already drafting a public apology she hadn't agreed to yet. A board meeting was quietly canceled. A donation was mysteriously refunded. And a lawsuit, one Celeste thought had been buried 15 years ago, resurfaced in a lawyer's inbox. No one connected the dots yet. But they would. Should Arielle let Joon-Seok protect her, or fight her own battles? The invitation disappeared first. Celeste was pouring her second glass of wine when her phone chimed. An email from the Pacific Arts Foundation, the gala she'd been planning to attend for months. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we regretfully inform you that your reservation has been canceled. She read it twice. No explanation, no apology, just canceled. She called immediately. The executive director's assistant answered, voice polite but distant. I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitmore. The decision came from the board. What board? I'm on the board. A pause, too long. Not anymore. The line went dead. Celeste stared at her phone like it had bitten her. That was Wednesday. By Friday, 3 more boards had quietly removed her name from their rosters. No meetings, no votes, just gone. Her lawyer called that afternoon, voice tight. We need to meet, in person. About what? The Sun case. Celeste's blood went cold. The Sun case was 15 years old, settled, sealed, buried so deep it might as well have never existed. A former employee, harassment allegations, a quiet payout, an NDA that cost 6 figures. Dead and gone. Except now her lawyer was saying a motion had been filed to reopen it. New evidence, witness testimony, records that shouldn't exist anymore. How is that possible? Celeste demanded. I don't know, but someone's pushing hard, and they have resources. She hung up and sat in her living room, hands shaking. Her husband was at work. Bunnut was upstairs, gaming, oblivious. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Celeste scrolled through her contacts, trying to find someone who could fix this. But every call went to voicemail. Every text went unanswered. People who used to respond within minutes suddenly couldn't be reached. It was like she'd become invisible. No, worse. Like she'd become toxic. She opened Twitter again, even though she knew she shouldn't. The video had 15 million views now. Her name was trending. Someone had dug up her family history, old photos, questionable donations, a pattern people were starting to notice. She's always been like this. Privileged and cruel. She finally messed with the wrong person. That last comment made her pause. Wrong person. It was just a flight attendant. Wasn't it? Celeste poured another glass of wine and tried to think. She'd apologized, sort of. Her publicist had drafted a statement. Vague, non-specific, the kind of apology that admitted nothing. But it didn't matter. The damage was spreading faster than she could control. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You should have kept your hands to yourself. Celeste's heart slammed against her ribs. She blocked the number. Another text came through, different number. Actions have consequences. She turned off her phone and sat in the dark, breathing hard. This wasn't random. Someone was doing this. Someone with power, with reach, with resources she couldn't match. But who? Have you ever watched someone's perfect life unravel and wondered who pulled the strings? Erpul knew something was wrong when Joon-Seok stopped answering her questions. He'd come home late Thursday night, suit jacket slung over one arm, tie loose. He kissed her forehead, asked if she'd eaten, and moved through the apartment like everything was normal. But it wasn't. She could feel it in the air between them, the careful distance, the way he didn't meet her eyes for too long. "Did you do something?" she asked. He poured himself water, leaned against the kitchen counter. "Define something. Don't play games with me." He smiled, not the warm smile she loved, the other one, the one that meant decisions had already been made. "I didn't touch her," he said calmly. "No one did." "Then what did you do?" "I corrected a problem." Erpol's chest tightened. "She's not your problem to correct. She put her hands on you. And I'm handling it." "No," Joon-Seok said quietly. "You're enduring it, there's a difference." The words landed hard. Erpol looked away, jaw tight. She hated that he was right. Hated that her first instinct had been to absorb the pain, stay quiet, keep her head down. Hated that he saw it. "I don't need you to save me," she said. "I'm not saving you. I'm making sure it doesn't happen again." By ruining her life. Joon-Seok set down his glass, crossed the kitchen, and stopped in front of her. Close enough to touch, but he didn't. "Do you know what she did after she hit you?" he asked. Erpol didn't answer. "She boarded a plane, ordered a drink, laughed with her son. She didn't apologize, didn't think about you once. Because in her world, you don't matter." His voice stayed calm, steady, but the anger underneath was real. "I'm changing that world," he said. "Not for revenge, for correction." Erpol stared at him, emotions tangled so tight she couldn't untangle them. Love, anger, gratitude, fear. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "I know. So why?" He finally touched her then, just his hand on her cheek, gentle, careful around the fatting bruise. "Because the world takes from you," he said, "and I refuse to let it." Erpol closed her eyes. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him to stop, undo it, let her fight her own battles. But part of her, the part that was tired of being invisible, tired of swallowing hurt, felt something else. Relief. And that terrified her. "What happens now?" she asked. Joon-Seok stepped back, gave her space. "She apologizes, publicly, and she means it. And if she doesn't, she will." There was no doubt in his voice, no hesitation. Erpol knew that tone. It meant the outcome was already decided. She sat down at the kitchen table, suddenly exhausted. "I don't know if I can live like this," she said quietly. "Always wondering what you're doing, who you're hurting, how far you'll go." Joon-Seok sat across from her. "Then tell me to stop." She looked up, surprised. "Right now," he continued. "Tell me to stop and I will. I'll undo what I can, walk away, let the system handle it." Erpol searched his face. He meant it. He would stop, for her. But they both knew what that meant. Celeste would get away with it. The video would fade. The outrage would die down. And in 6 months, she'd slap someone else. Because people like Celeste never learned. Not unless someone taught them. Erpol took a slow breath. "I'm not telling you to stop," she said finally. "But I need to know where the line is." Joon-Seok nodded. "No violence, no physical harm, just consequences." "Promise me." "I promise." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Erpol stood, walked around the table, and wrapped her arms around him from behind. "I love you," she said, "even when you scare me." Joon-Seok covered her hands with his. "I know." Outside their apartment window, the city lights blinked like distant stars. Somewhere across town, Celeste Whitmore's phone was ringing off the hook. And the collapse was just beginning. Is it wrong to want justice, even if it comes from the wrong hands? The apology happened on a Tuesday. Not in some private room, not through a lawyer's carefully worded statement. In front of cameras. Celeste stood outside Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, the same terminal where she'd slapped Erpol 6 days earlier. Reporters crowded close. Microphones bristled like a forest of metal trees. She looked smaller somehow, tired. The designer coat was gone, replaced by something simpler. Her makeup was understated. Her hands shook when she unfolded the paper. "I want to apologize," she began, voice cracking slightly, "for my inexcusable behavior toward Arielle Brooks." She paused, swallowed hard. "There is no justification for what I did. I was angry, entitled, and I lashed out at someone who didn't deserve it, someone who was just doing her job." The cameras captured every word. "I've spent the last week reflecting on my actions, and I've realized that this wasn't just a bad moment. It was a pattern, a lifetime of believing I was above consequences." Someone in the crowd shouted a question. Celeste ignored it. "I'm stepping down from all board positions. I'm donating to organizations that support service workers and fight workplace discrimination. And I'm committing to real change. Not performative, real." She folded the paper, looked directly into the nearest camera. "Arielle, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Truly. And I hope someday you can forgive me." The press conference ended. Celeste walked away without taking questions. Arielle watched the footage from her apartment, Joon-Seok beside her on the couch. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt tired. "Is this what you wanted?" she asked quietly. "It's what she needed," Joon-Seok replied. Arielle's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. She opened it. "You're stronger than you know. Don't let anyone, including him, tell you otherwise." No name, no signature. But somehow, Arielle knew it was from someone who understood. She set the phone down and leaned against Joon-Seok's shoulder. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you decide." "Decide what?" "What justice looks like for you." Arielle thought about that. The apology felt hollow, forced, but it was public, recorded, permanent. Celeste's reputation was destroyed, her social circle gone, her power stripped away. But Arielle still had a mark on her employment record, still had nightmares about the slap, still flinched when passengers raised their voices. The world had watched her get hurt. But healing happened in private. "I want something that matters," she said finally. "Not revenge, something that helps people like me." Joon-Seok nodded slowly. "Then let's build it." 3 weeks later, Arielle received an envelope. Inside was a deed. A building in South Seattle, empty, waiting. And a note in Joon-Seok's handwriting. "For whatever you want it to be." Arielle stood outside the building, keys in hand, staring at the blank canvas in front of her. She thought about all the flight attendants she knew, the ones who smiled through abuse, the ones who went home crying, the ones who needed support but had nowhere to turn. She thought about her mother, working double shifts with no safety net. She thought about herself, standing in that terminal, absorbing violence because she had no other choice. Not anymore. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The space was empty, quiet, full of possibility. And for the first time since the slap, Arielle smiled. What would you build if someone gave you the power to create real change? The center opened 6 months later. No grand ceremony, no press release, just a quiet ribbon cutting with people who mattered, flight attendants, service workers, community organizers. Arielle named it Haven House. It wasn't a shelter. It was a resource center, a place where service workers could get legal help, mental health support, job training, and advocacy. The kind of place that should have existed years ago. Joon-Seok attended the opening but stayed in the background. He'd funded it quietly, anonymously, the way he did most things. Arielle stood at the front of the small crowd, hands steady now, voice clear. "I spent most of my life learning how to be invisible," she said. "How to endure, how to survive." She paused, looked around the room. "But survival isn't enough. We deserve to be seen, respected, protected." Applause rippled through the space. Arielle caught Joon-Seok's eye across the room. He nodded once, proud, quiet. She'd been afraid his involvement would overshadow her work, that people would see his money instead of her vision. But he'd been careful, strategic. He gave her the tools. She built the house. That night, they sat on the balcony of their apartment, city lights stretched out below them. Do you regret it? Joon-Seok asked. Regret what? Letting me help. Arielle thought about that. No, she said finally, but I'm still learning how to accept help without feeling like I owe something. You don't owe me anything. I know, but it feels like I do. Joon-Seok turned to face her. You gave me something no one else ever has, he said quietly. What's that? A reason to build instead of destroy. Arielle's throat tightened. I love you, she whispered. I know. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city breathe. Somewhere out there, Celeste Whitmore was living a quieter life. Smaller, humbler. She volunteered now, donated her time instead of just her money, listened instead of commanded. Whether the change was real or performed didn't matter. The pattern was broken. And that was enough. Arielle's phone buzzed. A text from one of the Haven House coordinators. 3 new walk-ins today. All got the help they needed. This place is changing lives. Arielle smiled. Not the forced smile she'd worn for years. A real one. Can justice and healing exist in the same space? A year later, Arielle stood at gate C-17 again. Same terminal, same uniform, same job. But everything felt different. She wasn't hiding anymore. A passenger approached the desk, frustrated about a delay. Young guy, impatient, already raising his voice. Arielle listened calmly, explained the situation, offered solutions. The guy huffed but backed down. No slap, no insult, just a normal, frustrating travel day. When her shift ended, Arielle walked through the terminal with her head up. She noticed other flight attendants, gate agents, cleaners, security. All the people who kept the world moving while being treated like they were invisible. She handed out Haven House cards to the ones who looked tired, who looked like they needed to know someone saw them. If you ever need help, she said, we're here. Most took the cards, some thanked her, a few cried. Arielle understood. Being seen, after years of invisibility, felt overwhelming. That evening, she met Joon-Seok at their favorite restaurant. Small place, quiet, no cameras. He was already seated when she arrived, reading something on his phone. She slid into the booth across from him. Good day, he asked. Better than most. He smiled, the real one, the one only she got to see. They ordered food, talked about small things, weekend plans, a movie they wanted to see, renovations at Haven House. Normal couple things. Except they weren't a normal couple. And that was okay. Arielle reached across the table, took his hand. Thank you, she said. For what? For seeing me when no one else did. Joon-Seok squeezed her hand gently. You were always worth seeing. They finished dinner, walked out into the cool Seattle night, and disappeared into the crowd. Just 2 people in love. Building a world where dignity wasn't optional. Where silence didn't equal weakness. Where power protected instead of destroyed. Above them, planes took off into the night sky, carrying passengers to destinations unknown. And somewhere in the terminal, a flight attendant smiled at a stranger and meant it. Because the world was changing. One slap at a time. One choice at a time. One person brave enough to stand up and say, this ends now. Arielle Brooks had learned to fly above the noise. And she was never coming back down. If you've ever been treated as invisible, this story was for you. What moment made you realize you deserved better? Share your story in the comments. Your voice matters, and someone needs to hear it. Don't miss the next story that will inspire you to stand up, speak out, and reclaim your power. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Let's build a community where every story counts and every voice is heard. Drop a comment, share this video, inspire someone who needs it today. Because dignity isn't given, it's claimed. And your story starts now.